This is John the Witness on the Mind Blowers channel, bringing you hardcore Bible facts. Whether it is spoken out loud or not, most of us have some rather interesting ideas as to why knowledge suddenly increased in the 1800s. Some give credit to the European culture as being superior. Others give credit to the contribution of knowledge from all cultures, which snowballed in the 1800s. A few feel it is simply God's will, while a few others think Satan and his demons revealed this technology because they have a short time left. But exactly what is the real reason knowledge, and in particular technology, increased so dramatically in the 1800s? Out of nowhere, we harnessed electric and coal power, which led to trains, planes, automobiles, and the telephone by the 1890s. Not many years later came radio and television, but why? What makes the 1800s so special that no previous century in the history of mankind even came close to such knowledge? The key lies in Daniel chapter 2. Recall that the Jewish prophet Daniel helped the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar understand his bizarre dream of a tall, massive statue of a man. As Daniel describes, it had a head of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Notice that the first four kingdoms are described as solid metal, yet the last one, the fifth kingdom, was not fully metal like the others. Daniel describes it in verse 42 as follows: "And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou saw iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever." This distinction is very important between the last kingdom and the previous four. Notice how Daniel describes it as partly strong, partly broken. What exactly does this mean? Why is it not fully strong like the other kingdoms? Daniel goes on to show why it is not fully strong. This last kingdom will try to mix the various kinds of seed of men with one another. Now here, the old English way of describing this phenomenon has led some to assume this means the mixing of robotic machines with the seed of men, alluding to transhumanism. Although it is tempting to go this route, this is not what the vision is talking about. Keep in mind that each of the four previous kingdoms were described as 100% metals without mixing with clay. Metals are strong, so these kingdoms were strong and unbreakable because of a cohesive cultural, spiritual, political, military, and economic base. All of these kingdoms shared a common loyalty to the royalty, where the king was seen as an earthly representation of their god. If you read further in Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar required all citizens to worship him or else get killed. Because of this tight bond between the people and the king, it was difficult for Satan to break them up and give them to his human children, the Jewish leaders who entered into the Babylonian captivity, to control. On top of that, these kingdoms practiced various forms of classism and racism, where the Babylonians were at the top of Babylon's culture, the Persians were at the top of Persia, Greeks at the top of Greece, and the same for the Romans. A peculiar thing happened during the Roman era, the Iron Kingdom in Daniel 2. As Jewish historian Josephus mentions, powerful and influential Jewish leaders held a lot of power over Rome from behind the scenes, so much so that top Roman officials feared retribution if they dared speak ill of them openly. Josephus further mentions that some Jewish groups actually tried unsuccessfully to seize the kingdom of Rome. Once Jesus Christ came on the scene and made a huge seismic shift in the world, the same Jewish leadership tried to use the death of Jesus as a catalyst for taking over the world via the Roman Empire. As the events of 70 AD show, that didn't go too well. However, Had they been successful in taking over Rome, Satan and his demons would have surely unveiled the technology we later saw in the 1800s all the way back then. But the God of Jesus Christ had other plans, and so he ended it, just like he did with the Tower of Babel under Nimrod long ago. Since the fall of Jerusalem, Satan has been busy helping his human children continue to try to take over the same kingdoms of the world he offered Jesus Christ. It took until the conquest of the Christian kingdoms in the West around the late 1780s and 90s to begin to unveil the technology he long waited to give to his children to help them rule the world, where spiritually they are called Mystery Babylon the Great. The American and French revolutions are the key turning points in the history of mankind. So this is why we saw technology explode in America and Europe during the 1800s. Not because these people are better than everyone else, but because Satan and his children broke the iron metal kingdom era in many ways, much of it by weaponized immigration, where they purposely tried to culturally blend people from all over the world in the quote-unquote melting pot that became America and then Europe. But also the human children of Satan stirred up rebellion among the people against the European monarchies. The same would happen in the Muslim East, when they also used a mix of the same weapons against the Ottoman Empire to finally destroy it in World War I, roughly the 1910s, to finally recapture Jerusalem. The same thing would happen in Japan and China, where their strong monarchies were replaced by weaker forms of government that can be easily manipulated by the mystery Babylonian puppet masters. Had Satan arbitrarily unveiled this technology before these strong metal monarchies were weakened, the same kingdoms would have been able to resist Satan and his human children. And this is why we saw European colonialism also explode during the same time period all over the world, weakening strong monarchies and turning them into hollow constitutional forms of government. This is the iron mixed with clay. Even now, immigration is weaponized beyond natural immigration patterns, yet for the most part, each culture has still held on to its roots, thus not clinging to the false brittle structures. Yet the damage has been done, and the countdown to Satan's new world order is almost finished. Keep this in mind. I'm John the Witness. Stay strong in the faith of Jesus Christ. Amen.